We begin here in Japan. The government has officially decided to release treated water from the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant into the ocean. Before that happens, the water will be diluted so the concentration of contaminants meets global safety levels. The plan has been endorsed by the cabinet. The Prime Minister is promising transparency as the process moves forward.
This is a path that we cannot avoid in order to realize Fukushima's regional reconstruction and decommission the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. We will execute the plan only after ensuring it is safe. Potential damage to their reputation must not stand in the way of or extinguish people's hopes for Fukushima's recovery.
The decision comes a decade after a massive earthquake and tsunami hit northeastern Japan, triggering a triple meltdown at the power plant. Water is used to cool molten nuclear fuel. It mixes with rain and groundwater that flows into damaged reactor buildings, amounting to more than 100 tons each day. That water undergoes a treatment process that removes most radioactive material, but it still contains radioactive tritium. After that, the treated water is stored. There are about 1,000 tanks, now 90% full. The remainder is expected to fill up sometime next year. Treated water will be diluted, so the tritium concentration is well below national standards and about 1/7 of the level the World Health Organization suggests for drinking water. The government will instruct the plant's operator, the Tokyo Electric Power Company, to secure the equipment it needs to begin releasing the treated water in about 2 years. The plan pledges support for the local fishery, tourism, and agricultural industries. If their reputation is damaged, the power company would be called upon to provide compensation.
We will work hard to fulfill our responsibility to strike a balance between regional reconstruction and decommissioning the reactors throughout the lengthy decommissioning process.
It is common for nuclear plants to release water that has very low levels of tritium into the air or sea. Japan compiled data from some of the nations that generate nuclear power and found that both South Korea and China follow that practice. Those neighboring countries have expressed concerns about the plan, which China calls highly irresponsible.
Despite doubts and opposition at home and abroad, Japan has made this decision unilaterally without fully consulting with neighboring countries and the international community.
We think this is deeply regrettable. We plan to call for the transparent disclosure and the international verification of the overall treatment process of the contaminated water.
The U.S. Secretary of State thanked Japan for its transparency and said his country looks forward to Japan's continued coordination with the International Atomic Energy Agency. That nuclear group likewise welcomed Japan's decision and said it's ready to provide technical support.
The method Japan has chosen is both technically feasible and in line with international practice. Controlled water discharges into the sea are routinely used by operational nuclear power plants in the world and in the region.
But the Suga administration will also need to gain the understanding of people in Fukushima, and some remain unsure about the process.
I think as long as it's within international standards, it can't be helped under the current circumstances.
No one is satisfied with the decision. A few words from the Prime Minister, and the process is set in stone. This is wrong.
People in the fishing industry in particular have been strongly opposed to the plan. The head of a national industry group has released a statement protesting the decision and urging the government to clarify how it'll alleviate concerns in Japan and abroad. Turning to the latest coronavirus news here in Japan, Osaka has broken another daily record. The Western Prefecture reported over 1,000 new cases on Tuesday, marking a 4-digit count for the first time. Authorities confirmed 1,099 new cases, a rapid surge from only 38 cases about a month ago. People in Osaka expressed concern.
It's frightening that the number keeps increasing.
The cases finally surpassed 1,000, and I think it's bad and something needs to change.
The situation is straining the area's medical care system. Over 90% of immediately available hospital beds for seriously ill patients are occupied. The strain has affected treatment for people with light or medium symptoms. This hospital has 17 beds for such patients. Last week, one patient's condition turned serious, but a transfer couldn't be arranged for days. The hospital has no choice but to halt acceptance of new patients. Officials in the prefecture say the situation is extremely critical and unprecedented. They decided to hold an emergency task force meeting on Wednesday to decide on new anti-infection measures. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, officials are on alert against the spread of a contagious new variant with the N501Y mutation. Officials confirmed a record high 80 cases of infection with that variant strain on Tuesday. Nationwide, over 3,400 new cases were reported and more than 40 people died. Muslims in Indonesia have begun observing Ramadan as the serious coronavirus situation there continues. The country's top Islamic body says receiving vaccines during the holy month is in accordance with religious law. Indonesia started inoculations in January, but its daily new cases have topped 4,000 since the beginning of this month. The country has the largest number of coronavirus infections and deaths in Southeast Asia. Many Muslims, who make up nearly 90% of the country's population, worried that vaccinations would compromise daytime fasting during Ramadan. Last month, the country's top Islamic body issued a statement saying the vaccines do not invalidate the fast because they're administered by intramuscular injection.
I feel safe to know that being vaccinated during Ramadan is fine and there is no problem.
The Islamic body is cooperating with the Indonesian government's vaccination program by recognizing vaccines as halal certified or permissible under Islamic law. Taiwan's Navy has held a ceremony to mark the launch of a new domestically built vessel known as a landing platform dock amid increased Chinese maritime activity. The 10,000-ton Yushen is about 150 meters long and can carry amphibious landing craft and assault vehicles, among other gear. The deck can be used as a helipad. The ship is armed with air defense missile systems and is designed to evade radar detection. The vessel is expected to enter service next year.
With the addition of this ship, our Navy's ability will definitely be strengthened, and our defense capabilities will be more solid.
Meanwhile, Taiwan says Chinese fighter and bomber aircraft entered its air defense identification zone on Monday. The jets flew into the zone from Chinese airspace and headed back along the same route. The zone is situated over waters southwest of Taiwan. Chinese military aircraft have been appearing in the zone almost daily, but Taiwan says the 25 aircraft involved on Monday represented the largest such action since at least September. Myanmar has entered its New Year's holiday period. This year, people are quietly mourning the 710 people that have been killed in the military crackdown since the February 1st coup. In the country's largest city, Yangon, few people were outdoors on Tuesday and traffic was sparse. The main street in front of the city hall, where a large stage is set up every year for New Year's events, remains occupied by the police. People usually go out into the streets during the holidays to sing and dance and throw water on one another. But this year, activists are urging the public to spend the holidays in mourning as a show of protest against the military.
How can we have any fun amid this turmoil?
Activists are calling for anti-coup demonstrations during the week-long holidays, raising fears of a further crackdown on protesters by the military. The foreign ministers of Iran and Russia say their countries will work together to demand the United States lift sanctions against them. Iran's Mohammad Javad Zarif and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov met in Tehran on Tuesday to exchange views on the Iran nuclear deal. Former U.S. President Donald Trump withdrew from the pact and reimposed sanctions against Tehran, which in turn stepped up its nuclear activities. The administration of President Joe Biden hopes to rejoin the deal. Earlier this year, Biden increased sanctions against Russia for its crackdown on opposition forces. At a news conference after the meeting, Zarif stressed that the lifting of U.S. sanctions is necessary to revive the nuclear agreement.
We have seriously discussed lifting sanctions through deepening our cooperation on the nuclear agreement.
All unilateral sanctions imposed by Washington violate the Iranian nuclear deal and, of course, should be lifted.
In March, Iran signed an agreement with China to deepen cooperation in areas such as the economy and security for the next 25 years. Moves have been accelerated among Iran, Russia, and China to work together to counter the U.S. It's time now for a check of the world weather with our meteorologist, Sayaka Mori. A tropical depression has formed over the western Pacific, posing the threat of heavy rain to neighboring islands. Sayaka has the details of the storm.
Hello there. Clouds are developing over the western Pacific. This system will likely intensify to the second tropical storm of the typhoon season. It's now bringing rainfall to the Caroline Islands. It looks like it will continue to move at a very slow pace. So areas like the Caroline Islands as well as Palau could see days of heavy rain. And then eventually, as we go into next week, it could head towards the Philippines. So lots of rain and winds are expected to batter the country as well. And talking about bad weather, there were about 15 reports of tornadoes in the eastern United States during the weekend, and one of them occurred in parts of Florida. Take a look at this footage. The southern U.S. dealt with severe storms over the weekend. In Panama City Beach, Florida, a tornado was caught on camera as it skirted near the coastline. A home and a convenience store were damaged, but there were no immediate reports of injuries. And there's a concern for more severe thunderstorms in and around Texas and Louisiana due to this frontal system. And across the north, there's an ongoing snowy event across the north, including the Dakotas, Manitoba, as well as Minnesota. More snow is expected into Tuesday. 2 for the high in Winnipeg and looking pretty messy in the south. Houston at 26 with thunderstorms, and then sunny conditions in Miami with high of 28 degrees. And across the western side of the U.S. and Canada, it's looking gorgeous. It's going to be sunny in Seattle with a high of 18 degrees. Now let's go to Hawaii and talk about what's happened on Monday. We saw temperatures, quite low temperatures on Monday. The morning low was 14.4 degrees in Kahului. That's the daily record low for this area. And it was similarly cold in Hilo. It was only 16.1 degrees recorded on the same day.
An overnight curfew has been declared in Minneapolis as protests continue over the fatal police shooting of another black man. Authorities say Dante Wright was killed when an officer pulled out her gun instead of a taser. Ukraine's foreign minister has urged NATO to act now to prevent Russia escalating what he called its military build-up on several fronts against Ukraine. Kiev says 40,000 Russian troops are massed near their border. Japan is facing intense criticism from its neighbours over plans to release millions of tons of contaminated water from the stricken Fukushima nuclear plant into the sea. China says this is extremely irresponsible. South Korea has expressed its deep regret. And the US drugs regulator is recommending suspending the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because several recipients have developed rare and severe blood clots.